now, good morning. Happy Tuesday. This is a Tuesday and a classical Tuesday, but it's going to be a little bit of a mix-up. I want to do this in two parts just because we like to keep it nice and short, but there'll be a little break. So tomorrow we're going to talk about a saxophone player, and then Thursday we'll do part two for this class just because, well, just because. I mean, isn't that good enough? So I thought since the weather is changing a little bit, it's becoming more fall-like. Talk about a composer who's still living, probably the most celebrated and successful composer of carols. We're going to talk a little bit about carols since fall's coming and Christmas is coming and caroling is happening. One of the most successful who's alive today, and we'll talk about what carols are. We'll have a lot of fun, but we're going to talk about the gorgeous music today of John Rutter. John Rutter is an English composer, conductor, arranger. He's a record producer, and it's mostly all choral music that he is. So this will be a very lovely, no Schoenberger atonal nonsense. It'll be really melodic, sometimes too melodic. He's accused of being kind of too popular. It's almost popular music, but it's in the classical tradition. But he just had found a niche, and became highly successful. So we'll talk about him today and then Thursday, because there's a wonderful little short video of him explaining what he's doing that he could do it better than me. So, but let's just get into some of the music of John Rutter. So let's just back up. What's a carol? I mean, caroling, carolers, those annoying people that show up at your door and start singing for no reason. They're not annoying and being mean, and I don't even know if they do that anymore. Carol's a festive song, right? So something for a holiday, usually religious, but not necessarily, but sometimes religious with church worshiping, right? Because you would sing carols in church, and sometimes a dance would go along with it. And a caroler is a singer, right? Someone who sings the carols. And so mostly what we know is a Christmas carol, because those are, that's the theme of Christmas, a song usually sung at Christmas time and during the holiday season. So this is what John Rutter is going to make a living at, using carols, writing carols. So most of all these songs are original compositions. So he's not just a conductor and arranger, he's a composer. He's like like all those composers we've talked about. So he's writing music for his own choir, himself conducting, but he does traditional songs too. So he's born in London in 1945. So he's 76 years old today. Why don't we go over there? Let's go from Delaware, where Dead Poets Society was filmed. Let's go to London. 1945 is quite a year to be born in, right? World War II ends May 7th, and Hitler and Eva Braun, his wife, they commit suicide. And then this is when Truman becomes president, following the death of Roosevelt. And then the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan surrenders. So, one of the worst wars of all time comes to an end the year he's born. There's bebop happening in the United States and in Europe. There's, the swing music is happening, but kind of going more into jazz. But the big bands are still playing for sure. Not yet in rock and roll yet, right? Louis Jordan's creating a rock and roll type sound that, by the 50s will be taken over by Elvis. So that's kind of stuff. This is when John Rutter's born into. But then, classical music, of course, we always kind of forget that Benjamin Britten, other composers are writing, right? Many that we've talked about are still writing during this time. So Rutter's the son of an industrial chemist. And so starts taking piano lessons at age 7, kind of a prodigy, and was taught as a composer, also taught as a singer, taught to sing, and studied at Clare College in Cambridge. And he was a member of the choir, and starts writing his own choral music when he's an undergraduate. Clare College is where he's going to get a lot of his education, and from 75 to 79, he's leading this choir until he finds and establishes his own choir, the Cambridge Singers. So he's created his own ensemble. Philip Glass created his own ensemble. Michael Nyman created his own band. These composers, but John Rutter is going to create his own choir. A lot more people involved with that. And this is where he's going to conduct and make many recordings of sacred choral music. It's all just gorgeous music. It's funny because, a lot of it is very religious, right? But he said that he's not really a particularly religious person. He's very spiritual, and he's inspired by all these spiritual texts, prayers, but not really necessarily religious. It's interesting that many composers have written some of the best religious, music ever, but personally, perhaps they're not really religious. Some are. Messiaen, who's somebody that we haven't talked about, was a devout Catholic. But other composers, Britten wrote a lot of sacred music, but not necessarily in their private life. But it's interesting, right? As an artist, that you could kind of do something in one direction, but personally feel something a little bit different. But I think it all goes under the realm of feeling spiritual. It just like going to church doesn't mean that you're going to be a Christian or a Catholic, right? It's all, internal mostly. So I think a lot of these composers wrote for pre-existing, like a requiem, all these things that had gone from hundreds of years from, just like Bach writing. It all goes because they were writing music in the church, right? Not necessarily because some were religious, some weren't. So kind of interesting to think about that. So what kind of music are we hearing? It's eclectic. It's very melodic music. It doesn't sound like contemporary new music necessarily, because it's got a lot of melody and feel and heart to it. Not to say that doesn't exist today, but from mostly the composers that I bring up that are still alive today, they're either kind of, experimental, or a little bit not something you'd play maybe at a dinner party. This you could play at a holiday party, and this is from a composer who's still alive, and it's completely delightful. So a lot of people say there's the influences of French and English choral traditions that he's incorporating from different composers throughout the centuries, really. It's light music, but we've talked about light music going back to Strauss, the Blue Danube, all the way up to Leroy Anderson. This is kind of light music, fun, very festive, feel-good music. And there's some songwriting, classic songwriting. He's writing songs, not like Irving Berlin, but I mean, if you break some of his compositions down, it's a you know, a verse and a chorus and then a verse again. It's just sometimes the orchestration makes it a little sound different. And we talked about orchestration with Rimsky-Korsakov, how you can, but when it's stripped down to just a page of music, it can be very simple, just like a lead sheet that Irving Berlin would write, or George Gershwin would write, or even a melody that the Beatles would write, or something Rimsky-Korsakov would write. It's kind of a song, but it's how you arrange that song that, so when you think of music, when it's broken down to the basics like that, it's pretty simple and, you know, pretty cool. He quotes, he says, I'm still doing what I did doodling at the piano, only now I get paid for it. So he's doing what he's always done as a kid, doodling at the piano. So that's just a taste of John Rutter. We're going to talk a little bit about him on Thursday, just because we'll do a recap and listen to an interview by him that's that I find very special. So tomorrow we're going to look at a tenor saxophone player that you're going to definitely want to catch. So have a great rest of the day. See you tomorrow. Okay, bye.